Hi.
Great job.
Hi, welcome back to Unhinged Red Flags. I'm Lacey.
She's the red flag.
That's Kylie.
And I'm fucking unhinged. But Jesus, dude. So sorry about the break that we had to take last week, guys. Life sucks. So, you know, between people getting COVID in my life and having to rearrange schedules and then you not feeling great and
Doctor's appointments with me and we'll get into kind of like that on another episode.
Yeah. But so where we left off last time, 2 freaking weeks ago, was we were talking about narcissism, and the last time we were all together, we talked about narcissism in women and tendencies that women tend to have, and then the week before we spoke about men.
Yep.
So this week, what we kind of wanted to focus on was how to spot your own narcissistic tendencies and kind of stop them, or at least acknowledge them.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of like a little bit of our trauma background. I'm going to put this out there right now. Neither of us are like professionals in the field. We're not counselors or anything, but
we're just some women who have gone through some shit.
And we want to share that with everybody. And
if you can learn from our mistakes,
great.
And grow.
And if you know, that you vibe with what we're saying, that's awesome too.
If not,
you know, then hasta la vista. I don't give a shit. But, so, narcissism in ourselves, how to spot it. I think the main thing is being open and honest with yourself,
mm-hmm.
and being ready to criticize yourself. And it sounds easy.
So, for me, like, I will do something that's narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll get called out on it. And I'm like, no. And I'll deny it till I'm blue in the face. Because once I'm, like, put on the line, like, you're coming at me, you're attacking me, I'm instantly on the defense.
Yep.
You've got to give me some time to, like, come to the realization that,
okay, maybe.
No, I did that. Yep, I fucked up. And then come apologize for it.
Right. Like, make amends for what you did, said, whatever. And I mean, you can't unbreak a glass house.
Mm-mm.
You know, once you say the shit that you say, you can't take it back. Just like our parents all taught us. Normal people's parents all taught us. But you can help to repair the bond, the relationship with whomever it is that you hurt. And you know, it can be something as easy as gaslighting your kids. It can be something as big as lying to a spouse. You know, narcissism, gaslighting, all that, it varies. It varies in its severity and how often you do it.
See, I know my triggers. I know my patterns and my behaviors. So I can, for the most part, catch myself before getting to that point of being a complete fucking tool bag.
And, I mean, on top of it, you've got good people around you. You've got a ton of us around you who will immediately tell you, hey, chill out.
Yep.
That's not something that you want to do. And then you'll go, oh, yeah, okay. Before you get into that blind rage of,
But, and that all comes with time and understanding of yourself.
Right.
And knowing what brings you to that point where you feel like it's not really a feel, where you
disregard other people's feelings and how they will react to a situation because your wants, needs, mostly wants, are above everyone else's. So, I mean, a great example of this, is like when I had my PTSD. How long did it take me to finally go see a counselor? What was it, a year and a half after the initial incident?
I want to say about a year and a half, almost 2. You were pushing it quite a bit.
And I mean, I literally was drugged, kicking and screaming into the counselor's office. And I did not want to be there, but I couldn't see what was happening. You guys all could, I couldn't see. So sometimes it takes that other person, or in my case, other people, to stop you from what you're doing, because you're going down a self-destructive path. And I was a bitch to everybody. I didn't want to talk to anyone.
You pushed a lot of people away, or
I
you
did.
attempted to. You pushed, and I think the ones that you managed to push away weren't really there to help benefit you.
Right.
They weren't there to help get you to a point of healing.
Right.
And the ones that pushed back, saying, nah, you can push as hard as you want, those are the real people for you.
You're the real MVP, man.
Boop, boop.
But yeah, so, you know, healing doesn't just start because you decide, well, today I'm going to start my healing journey. You know, most of the time, like they always say, you need to hit rock bottom first. And what we really want is to stop people before they get to rock bottom. And what I encourage everyone to do, whether it be me, Lacey, you know, my daughter, my 4-year-old, we stop and reevaluate the feelings that we're having and the actions that we've done, and, you know, really look into why we've done that.
And there are going to be times where you just cannot control.
Right.
But it's how you handle it afterwards that will make the biggest difference.
Absolutely. It's okay to fuck up. It's 100% okay to fuck. Yeah, same. Like, you know, with this gentle parenting lately.
Mm.
Yeah. Trying to be a gentle parent in this day and age is
Hard.
impossibly hard, and you're just gonna fuck up. And if you don't know what gentle parenting is, it just means trying to parent more, what's the word, more consciously, and everything we tell our children and teach our children and show them is by example. So that sucks.
Softer voices.
Quit with the yelling, the trying to manipulate them.
You statements.
Right.
You did this. You're naughty. You're bad.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's a battle. I mean, my child is a terrorist, so
my kids are sweethearts.
Yeah, they are, for the most part.
For the most part.
But, so, when you think that maybe something that you've done is not, you know, everything's hindsight is 20/20. So if you go home, you sit on the couch and crack a beer or whatever, and then you start thinking about your day, you know, whenever I get into a verbal altercation with somebody, I always think of about 20 better comebacks while I'm sitting on the couch reviewing the play than I did in the moment. And getting more pissed off. And getting more pissed off because, you know, I could have had a better comeback to that. You know, our behaviors are exactly like that. We should be going over them. We should be analyzing them. We should not be trying to blanket over them and disguising them.
No, and I think the takeaway for this is just being true and honest to yourself, and then also gentle. Because the harder you are on yourself, the harder the healing is going to be.
Absolutely. And
just be understanding the way you are understanding and compassionate with others who are going through things. Be understanding with yourself.
Which is
compassionate,
like terribly difficult to do.
Yourself. Just be gentle. I mean, nobody's gonna treat you the way you want to be treated other than you. Like, you have to set that example.
Exactly. And, you know, with that, when we're looking at it and all that jazz and what it is that we should have done in the moment, and shoulda, coulda, wouldas, you know, you can think about it till you're blue in the face. But until you try to put something else in practice, what's the thing? Apologies without change is manipulation. Yeah. Unless you are willing to first accept that you've done something wrong and then change what it is that you did to not do it again, And then 3, like Lacey has said, making reparations, going and apologizing to those people. Sincerely.
Apologies.
And they do not have to accept your apology nor forgive you.
And that is okay too.
That is 100% okay. And don't expect it from people just because you apologized, said sorry, and whether it was sincere or not, they are under no obligation, because just like your feelings are valid, so are theirs. Jinx. So, when you're looking at this shit, you know, be gentle with yourself, but be very brutally honest. Like,
and as shitty as that is, as much as you don't want to self-reflect and dive deep into your feelings and your history and your traumas and your trauma behaviors, that is a scary, lonely path, and only you can take it. And that is a path I think I have taken many, many, many times.
It's one I'm on right now.
And it's a path that we will continue to take. Like we've said in the past, healing is not linear. It is a continuous thing. I will be in therapy until the day I die.
True that.
Yes, I'm hogging the chips.
Yeah, you are, you fucking cunt.
Like, I will be continuing to heal myself outside of therapy as well till the day I die. It does not stop one day. You don't wake up going, oh, I'm better.
I'm fixed.
That doesn't happen. But I think if you do find yourself on that healing journey and that healing path, again, it is dark, it is lonely, but the people that you surround yourself with, your tribe, your best friends, your partner, you know, if you can get those people that are understanding to your plight and are willing to help you through, I mean, it makes healing a little bit better.
It does. And, you know, it doesn't need to be people that have been with you through the whole thing.
No, they could come in. Okay, so you and I have been best friends, what, 8 years?
9, remember?
9 years, yep, just
Child
after
was
Lily.
just born.
So 9 years. I have another best friend going on, Bree and I are
4 or 5.
5 years. And another one, Ty, going on 4 years. Like, I have, and then you get Dave and Shelly. Shelly's been with me since Mikey I was pregnant with him, so 16 years.
And I mean, Brooke and I were barely even friends in high school, and now we are best friends.
Yep.
Bonnie, I didn't meet her until 3 Oaks.
So the number of years you've known somebody is really nothing. It's how your soul recognizes
another soul.
Yep.
Quality over quantity.
Quantity over quality.
Definitely. I need a few hundred more people, please.
Right? Because adding more people to your tribe just gets you in trouble.
It does.
Like me.
Yeah. You tried.
I did try.
You tried to expand. It didn't work out. Come back to us.
Oh my gosh. We'll come back to that story at the end of the
That's
episode.
a part of today.
Yeah, we'll come back to that story at the end of the episode. We'll fill you in on the neighbor
saga drama.
Yeah, there's been an update.
So, you know, a part of that, I'll share what last night, 2 nights ago? Last night, I have a lot of anxiety. My trauma is SA related, which we don't need to get into. Nobody needs to know details of all that nonsense. But recognizing that the way that I healed from that, the first year and a half, like we said, I was not in a good place. And I was basically forced to go to therapy or be institutionalized. Like, it was one or the other for me. And now, as more adult, not very adulty, but
isn't it shitty when you look around looking for an adult and realize you're the adult?
It 100% is. So anyways, further into my adulting career,
Very underpaid and understaffed.
Underpaid, understaffed, underappreciated, and we have 0 fucks to give.
Yeah. Anyways.
You know, even last night I was having quite the anxiety attack, and, you know, it was brewing for a couple days. Not to be that guy, it's that time of the month, so I'm hormonal, and so that doesn't help.
But she also didn't realize at that time, I think. Because I was on the phone with you and I asked you.
You asked me if it was, and, you know, as women, we get a little bit defensive when people ask that, but at the same time, there is logic and reason rooted behind the question being asked.
And I think that was, like, maybe the 3rd or 4th. It wasn't like, hey, are you on your period?
Right. And, like...
It's like, I don't want to offend you, but, I mean, are you?
Right, because hormones...
Up to that? It's a very real thing.
It is a very real thing, and sometimes, like, I remember when I was pregnant, I had 0 filter coming out my mouth. There was no stopping every thought that came through.
But that's how I am all day.
Yeah, well, that's great. But, like, I was having an anxiety attack, and I called her, and I give 0 fucks. We are very open to talking about how we're feeling and why we're feeling that way, especially because normally she and I can talk through it. And we can logic our way through it. And it's not because I can't do that myself. It's sometimes when you're worked up and in the moment, logic goes out the window for a few minutes. And you cannot think about it. All you can think about is the thing that's bothering you right here, right now. Like with me, for example. I have huge, like, separation and, like, my anxiety is stemmed with my self-worth to other people. And the way that I perceive that is that if I'm not in communication with somebody on a fairly regular, like, every hour basis, I get a little bit nervous. And it's not nervous like, oh, they might be dead or they might be lost. No, it's nervous they don't want to hang out with me because at my default setting, nobody likes me. And they just tolerate me because society says we have to. Which I recognize logically that's probably not true. Probably being the key word. You know, that's probably not true. But, you know, it's just the default that my brain goes to when things like that happen. So my boyfriend, love him. Love him. There's a reason that he's called Good Cody for a reason. He is severely untraumatized to a point where, like, sometimes things that I'm perceiving, he has no clue about.
Yep.
And that's good. I'm happy for him. I'm very happy for his naivete on such matters. But when I'm feeling that way, I can call her. It's hard for me to communicate that with him because, 1, I know he's untraumatized and I don't want to traumatize him. And 2, and more importantly, I have to be able to work it out with somebody who knows what's going on and knows why I'm reacting that way. And now I'm able to talk to him in a better way to help him to understand and help me to understand too why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And it is literally of no fault of his own. Like, what happened yesterday in any other person's capacity would not have even, like, been a blip on the radar. Yep. It was literally, I had not been texted.
In, like, 4 hours.
In, like, well, it was, like, 6, but still.
But it sent her...
It sends me...
Into a huge spiral.
Into a spiral of...
And once that spiral started, it just snowballs.
And, you know, it spiraled off of over the weekend. He was busy, and there was very little communication during that. But that's fine, because I'm at work, but, like, it still makes me nervous. And then just a little bit further, the next day, still very little communication. And the next day, still very little communication. So... that snowballs.
Yeah.
And then I get into this tizzy of, he's just trying to break up with me. I should just do it first. Blah, 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 blah. And she's like, you need to take a chill pill.
I said it nicer than that.
And then I do. You know, calm yourself down.
I'm not a complete raging cunt.
No,
when I'm trying to work you through that, but
it's
like, you have, in order to understand someone's healing process and the way their brain works and what works best for them to pull them out of the spiral, you kind of have to get into the trenches.
You do. And I think something that we've adopted is verbalizing every thought that goes through our head for like a good 5 minutes and just kind of spouting it, and the other person allowing us to do so, because they can't be interrupting our thoughts, because one, we both have ADHD, so it'll just be piled onto another one.
You've got to be able to word vomit, and then we can pick it apart at that point, because once you start that overflow and everything just comes out, and it literally, once you start releasing it feels so good,
and you just keep letting it go,
and everything that's built up from the last 2 days to the weekend to a week prior to a month, anything that you've been holding on to that's maybe kind of giving you like ick vibes, all of it kind of blows up and it becomes this huge thing, when in reality, if we word vomit,
we can let it out,
we can pick it apart, going, okay, what really caused this? What's caused this?
And that's the important thing, is not looking at the surface of what's happening. Because at the surface of what was happening yesterday, I was not being communicated with. We could have a field day with just that, going, he's not communicating with me, he doesn't care about me, and this is the spiral I go down, because when my anxiety comes, it's at surface value only, because it doesn't take into consideration the accountability that he has shown in the last almost year of us dating. Nope, we just see the surface. We see the first like inch and a half of, he's not communicating, he doesn't want to talk to me, he's probably doing something else more important, so I'm not a priority, blah, 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 and we go. Whereas when we word vomit, we will eventually get to the cause. And the cause was me just having this attachment to needing the people around me to communicate with me very, very frequently. And if they don't, or if they answer shortly, or whatever it is.
I think over the weekend, I try not to text her, because that's her primary, like
when she
works. It's just the weekends, and then I work during the week. So like I try not to bug her while she's at work. But I think it was Saturday, you texted, or you called me, or you texted me
something,
and you're like, I miss you. I'm like, miss you too. You're like, that's all, just needed to see your face. And that, like, that little bit, that little reassurance.
Right.
Or, hey, love ya. Like, love you too.
It doesn't need to be made into a big thing.
No.
Like, that's literally all it needs to be, is I'll call her and just be like,
haven't heard from you. You good?
Okay, that's it. Goodbye.
And that, like, that reassures me, like, she's good, but it also gives her reassurance. Like, okay, she doesn't hate me.
Right. And, like, you know, that's the same can be said with when I call people and they don't answer. My default to go to is they don't want to talk to me. And then I have to rationalize, well, it's in the middle of the day. Most people work in the middle of the day. They're probably doing something. They might be taking a poop. Like, you just never know what people are doing.
Unless you're me and I answer that call while I'm pooping.
Same. So, you know, just knowing that, knowing where my anxiety comes from, helps me to not get into those spirals very frequently. I don't get into them very frequently anymore. Lately it's been a little bit more, I've had a little bit more stress in my life, so it's harder to reason your way through it sometimes. But in the end of the day, this is me going on, Jesus, when did I turn 18? 10 years of being aware of the problem and working to get it to be at the point that it's at. So,
is this a point where she's done healing?
Absolutely not.
Is she happy with the healing process so far? I would say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
any little progress is great progress. Even if you feel it's minute, that baby step forward is an astronomical step when it comes to healing.
And I said that last night at the end of our little sesh or whatever you want to call it.
Maybe your therapist.
Right, you therapist, Dr. Lacey. Dr. Lacey, PhD.
I should go finish my degree.
Yeah, that would be fun. Woohoo!
Yep.
But, you know, I said even then, you know, it's very frustrating to feel like you've taken a few steps back.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Lacey just said, shut the hell up. You're, like, what do we tell everybody all the time? Progress isn't linear, healing not healed.
No.
Like,
and even those, taking those few steps backwards. And I relate it to my own healing process, but I'm also going to relate it to my son's wrestling. He's big in wrestling. I'm a huge wrestling mom. But you have to take a few steps back to get better. And as backwards as that sounds, taking the few steps back gives you a wider view. Like, you've healed up until that point. Now you're stepping back. You're seeing what it looks like. What can we change to heal
further
in a different direction that could, you know, make it better, make that healing process easier.
Right.
You know, with Mikey's wrestling, he has to get knocked on his ass a few times in order to get better. He can do this move 1,000 times in a row and perfect it each time. But then he'll get caught up in it, and then he'll hate himself. Mm-hmm. Like he's a failure. And I'm like, dude, you've got to get knocked back so you learn how to get out of it.
Yep, absolutely. So,
I don't know if I was going to hoard it some more if you wanted some.
I mean, you are a hoarder.
When it comes to fucking chips, you betcha.
I know you are.
You betcha.
So, that's my little spiel about it. We actually just had a really fun kind of encounter with Lacey's.
One of my trauma people. So, my mother,
birth giver.
We all know she's not the best mother. And I don't want to completely not blame her for how everything happened. And I don't want to blame the era that she grew up in, but I mean, she was born in 65. So by the time she was, you know, teens to 20s, early 20s, she was in that free love, that late 70s, 80s, right? Having a good time. Like, that drug scene was huge back then. So she didn't know how to be a mother because she was still a child herself. And she had her first abortion when she was 14.
Abortion is healthcare.
Yes.
And everyone has the right to choose.
Yes.
No arguments.
So she had her first abortion when she was 14, although that was a forced abortion. From what my understanding is, like, my grandparents forced her to do this. But then she had my brother Matt when she was 16. So she had the abortion, then turned around, got knocked right back up. And then it was pretty much every 1.5 to 2 years for the first 3 kids. And then she got married, and then she had the last 3 in January, February, March of 88, 89, and 90. It was like boom, 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 boom. But she was married to my father at the time. She didn't know how to be herself without relying on a man or having that validation from someone. Mm-hmm. And that kind of rolled over into her relationships with men, and she always picked the wrong man. And then her drug abuse and her alcohol abuse. And that kind of led into a lot of trauma that us kids went through as kids. I mean, my sister and I went through it, and by the time I was 18, I had moved 18 times.
Christ.
Like,
this is what we mean by very different backgrounds. I've moved 5 times.
By the time you were 18?
No, by the time I was 18, I had moved technically once into the home
that your parents live in now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had moved 18 times by the time I was 18. You know, with countless different boyfriends my mother had. on top of house fires, and then you throw in the physical child abuse, and then you throw in the sexual child abuse, being molested. I was 2 the first time I was molested, and then again in 3rd grade. And then you add the drug abuse and my mother being in jail and prison. I mean, she went to prison, we think, technically. So I was always under the assumption that she had gone to prison for the first time this summer after my freshman year of high school. But I actually think she had gone to prison 8th grade.
Oh.
And like at that point, she had disappeared for it might have been earlier, I think maybe 6th or 7th grade, because she had disappeared for quite some time. And my Aunt Debbie had to come down and take care of us because, I mean, we had nobody other than my sister Des, but she was in high school too. She was a kid taking care of kids. So, anyways, we ran into my mother today, and I always make it a point to stand in her line of view so that she can see us.
They don't speak.
The last time I had spoken with her was at the bar on Horseshoes when I had said, change without...
Apologies
without change is manipulation. Thank you. And she, I had not seen her. I mean, it's been over a year and a half, almost 2 years since the last time I spoke with her. But today, coming out of the gas station, I had seen her.
And this was the first time I've ever seen her.
And I was like, hey. And Kylie had looked at me, and I was like, that was my mother. And she was like, what? I was like, do you have anything that we can throw away? Because I wanted my mother to see that I am doing well without her. I don't need her. I am the mother she should have been. Is it a little toxic of me? You betcha. But it's toxic of me because I'm flaunting myself in front of her, knowing that she cannot come talk to me. I had taken that privilege away from her. I had taken that privilege away from her in regards to my children. And I'm literally putting myself in her view within grasping, like a hand's reach, and her not being able to say anything. Is it a mind game? Yes. Is it manipulation? Is it toxic? Yes.
We're unhinged red flags for a reason.
Am I able to do better? You betcha. I can definitely do better. Do I want to? Not really. Because she had inflicted so much pain on all of us children over the years and well into our adult years before we finally said enough is enough and we cut her off. But no, this is a little bit of the pain back onto her. She does not have access to our kids. Any of our kids, starting with the oldest, going all the way down to the youngest. She has lost access to all 6 of her children and their grandbabies, or their kids, so her grandbabies. And I think making her see me and look at me and me pretending she's not there is that little bit of that twist in that knife. Am I sorry?
Not really.
I am sorry that I feel like I have to do this. Am I going to change? Eventually, probably, maybe, we'll see. But right now, I feel like that little twist of that knife is nothing compared to the pain that she's inflicted on us.
And I would like to also put that out there, that between the two or the few different options that could be taken during that time, with the amount of pain that she has inflicted on you, you could either A, start some shit.
I could.
B, have me start some shit. Or C, ignore her and let her see what it is that she's missing. So, of the 3 possible scenarios,
it's the healthier of the 3.
It's the healthier of the 3. Or the 4th scenario is to just leave and not give a shit.
Yeah.
But again, you have to take into consideration how you're gonna feel when you look in the mirror that night and go, was that what I wanted to do? Was that the right thing to do?
I think deep down what I want to do is be able to see her either nod my head like in like a kind of saying a hi little way and just continue to walk past and go about my day completely unbothered. But I know seeing her is going to bother me for the rest of the night, and it's going to dredge up all of those hurt and angry and even at times fearful feelings.
Right. Well, you were a child.
So I'm going to have to psychoanalyze myself all night because I just seen my mother. But on the other hand, like, I called my sister up and I was like, hey, guess who I just saw? Like, hey, good to know she's still alive. And that's literally what I told my sister, is like, just letting you know she's still alive. Because none of us have anything to do with her.
Right.
You know, one of these days we're going to get a phone call. We don't know who's going to get the phone call, but we're going to get that phone call that she's dead.
Yep.
And we're going to have to come to terms with the fact that we continued on this path of just completely ignoring her and keeping her out of our lives. Or eventually we're going to have to heal, and one of us, if not multiple of us, several of us are going to have to be like, all right, let's bring her back in. But do we want to invite the devil into our home?
Right. So
it's a horse apiece.
I don't think it's a horse apiece, but
to me, like, it's not so much inviting her back in, but at least opening that line of communication, going, this is how I feel, these are my boundaries, we can discuss, but anytime you cross a boundary, I am out again. Do I want to take that path? So that's something I think I have to come to terms with and figure out what I want to do as far as my healing process goes for that woman.
Right.
You know, and the same with my father. Although with my father, I did send my new stepmom a friend request that she denied, which is shitty because I was really hoping to start some shit.
Healing, not healed.
Sometimes you just gotta be a red flag.
Just a little bit. So, like, knowing yourself is so important, and recognizing why you do what it is you do, even if you do it and you know it's toxic, or you know it's not necessarily the road that should be taken. Recognizing why you're doing that is a good step into your healing journey. You don't have to fix it right here, right now. But we are never advocates for hurting somebody.
No.
We are never, unless it's self-defense, you should never be hurting somebody. And it should always be the last resort.
Like I said, I think the mental hurt and the emotional hurt that I inflicted on her today was enough. And in the same breath, I'm also hurting. I'm 34 years old. I am still healing for the traumas of my past. Tonight is going to be a very long night, you know, and I like to journal when I come into things like this, you know, write down my feelings, figure it out, kind of go from there. Otherwise, I have a sesh with you. But having to do like that internal, that deep dive into what I'm actually feeling is a huge step into where I was just a few short years ago when I came to my mother. I think a few short years ago I was screaming at her, you know, and I've gotten to the point where I'm indifferent, to a point, you know.
No, I
healing.
100% agree. Healing, not healed.
We're healing.
It's so much fun.
Ugh,
I know.
Love this for us.
Know, it's just a blast. Yeah. So, on top of all of it, I like how my Circle bottle in every show is just sitting here. Not sponsored, but hey, Circle.
And Monster and Celsius and Pringles today. So, you know, we're just getting all the big name brands.
Product placement. I'm big into, like, movie quotes and shit, and I always will, like, if I'm watching a show or something, and a Coke can or something will be just, like, perfect view. I'll be like, product placement. If you don't know what that is, it's specific placement. like for endorsement. So like when somebody pulls up driving a Ferrari or whatever, they didn't just pick it because it's a good car or cool car. They picked it because Ferrari paid to put that car in the movie. So I like to point those out. Yes, I'm a nerd. So sorry.
Going back on feelings and understanding them and kind of diving down. A couple weeks ago, I was kind of spiraling.
Yep, having your feelings.
Yep, and I had initially thought it was about my father and like surface level, right? But then kind of digging down, what was it that was really causing the issue? So I have a friend, we'll call him D. He was over here last week, I think, with his 2 kiddos, and his kids are quite young, and we were just kind of sitting around having a night, and the 2 littles were kind of going at it, and it had gotten to the point where he was like getting frustrated, but he like very gentle parenting, and she was sassing off, telling him no. Like the sass coming from this little girl was monumental. Thank you.
Remarkable.
Like, and I was sitting in the chair over there, and there's been several times where he has complimented me on my parenting skills with my kids and how well behaved they are and how aware of their feelings and how they talk things out. And when she started getting sassy, I was kind of watching it out of the corner of my eye, and I was smirking, and we had Yellowstone on again. Place marketing.
Product placement.
Thank you.
Place marketing.
Whatever she said earlier, that's what we're talking about. And I was just kind of watching the show, but kind of keeping an eye on this. And he had settled the original tiff down, and he had come over by me, and he was whispering, and he was like, "Now you see." And I am like, "I do." And he was like, "What?" He was like, "You have some suggestions." I'm like, I do,
but like are we at that point in our friendship where I can parent your children?
I don't want to tell you how to parent your kids because you're doing a great job, and every child is different, and every relationship between a parent and their kid is different.
Yep.
And what you have with this kid's going to be completely different than this kid. And he was like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Can I give you some pointers?
Some advice?"
And he's like, "Yes, please." So I told him, kind of how I would have done it. Like, I wouldn't have said, "Knock it off, otherwise I'm taking the phone away," and then let her continue that behavior without taking the actual phone away.
Actually making it
and
happen.
Things like this. And so I just gave him kind of a few pointers, and he kind of sat back down, and we were watching Yellowstone, and the kids were doing their thing, and they were getting sassy again. They were starting up with each other, and he was like, "We're gonna call his daughter Rebecca." He was like, "Rebecca, like, knock it off, otherwise I'm going to take the phone away." And she was like, "What?" And he got so sassy. Ooh. Like the sass.
The what?
And he was like, "No, give me the phone." And she kept like yanking the phone away, going, "No, what do you want? Like, what do you want?" Just
little gangster.
And I'm like, "Oh my God." And I think out of the corner of his eye, he saw my head go like this, like that wouldn't have flown with my kids.
Right.
And he got the phone. He was like, "No, enough's enough. We're going home." And I'm like,
"Bye.
Can I say something?" And he's like, "Okay." And by that time, Rebecca had kind of snuggled. He was sitting here, and she had snuggled into him. And you can see, it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. You can see that she's getting work done. And I kind of just gently talked her through this. I said, "I know these feelings are big. I know it's hard to understand where they're coming from. As adults, it's hard for us to kind of understand where our feelings come from. And we have big bodies for these big feelings. And you've got this little itty bitty baby body, so let's talk it out. Are you really that upset with your brother? Or is there something else going on?" And she kind of like looked at me out of the corner of her eye. I'm like, There it is.
Side
So
eye.
it's that subtle clues, you know. And when she looked at me, I'm like, that's it. I said, are you hungry? She's like, no. I said, are you tired? I said, you just had school. It's been a long day. You guys, you know, had vacation. She's like, yeah. I said, okay, so we're tired. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. Being tired, does that give you a right to talk to your brother like that, though? And does that give you a right to talk to dad like that? And I kept my voice very calm, very soothing. And eventually we talked it out. And she was great afterwards, phenomenal. And like, you can see my buddy look at me and he was like, I'm just in complete awe of how you dismantled that whole situation. And then later that night, after going home, I guess the kids, they stayed up for a bit with him and they had ice cream and they kind of talked and they started getting snappy again. And his daughter Rebecca kind of implemented what I had taken a step back, taken a deep breath instead of going off the rails. She was like, I'm feeling like this and I think it's because of this. And she kind of talked it through with her dad and with her younger brother. And he texted me and he was like, Rebecca did everything you showed her. And like, he goes, I can't thank you enough for helping. He was like, I have never seen anybody dismantle that kind of attitude from her so fast.
So do you follow Tori Phantom and guy, don't remember, Mama Cusses on TikTok? You should.
Okay, so is
Tori's the skinny tiny one
who's always dying.
Yeah,
and
they dye their hair all the time.
And they were like cooking back and forth.
Yeah, and then Gwenna is Mama Cusses, and
Gwenna.
she's got the two littles, and
yeah,
like both of them plug those two, Tori
Love
Phantom and Mama Cusses, amazing parenting. I follow them for their parenting skills.
Yep.
Also, Tori is so funny when they dye their hair because
she goes off on these
sporadic
tangents too. Like
right.
The way she's
it's sporadic. It's very funny. So, I think it was Gwenna said something. Maybe it was Tori. I don't remember. One of them said something the other day that it completely resonated with me and made me like whole new outlook on kids, toddlers specifically. My daughter's 5, so she'll be a child soon, not a toddler, but even still. It was something along the lines of kids aren't intentional with their hurt. Their feelings are hurt, and so then they lash out. It's something along those lines of like, they don't mean to do what they're doing. They just have no other way of showing you what it is. And I'm going to have to look that up.
They don't have the comprehension behind it.
Right.
You know, and it's our job to teach them.
And I think as parents, we look at kids so frequently as tiny humans instead of developing humans. We see them as little versions of ourselves, which, I mean, if you've ever seen my daughter, she is literally my clone.
And we expect them to be able to handle big feelings and things
in
like
the exact way that we do it.
Yep.
So, I mean, just when I don't remember who it was, whether Gwenna or Tori, when whoever said that, it just kind of like snapped me into a whole different perspective of they're not intending to harm us. You know, now my daughter's like, she's getting into this 4 or 5 range where she's kind of learning what, like, you know, kids manipulate. Like, let's be real here. Yeah. Kids try to manipulate their parents. And she lives in a split household. Her dad and his fiance live somewhere and I live elsewhere. So, you know, being in a split household is difficult, especially because the two parents most of the time will parent a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. And her dad and I are very good about being in the same page, and when we know that there's probably manipulation happening, we'll get the other one on the horn right away and be like, hey, so kiddo said you said this, is that what you said? And be like, no. And so we'll shut that down real quick, so she knows that we communicate about things. Which, sidebar for a second, if you're in a co-parenting relationship with somebody that you dislike, because let's be real, we don't break up with people that we like most of the time. I'll give you like a 2% of like wrong time, wrong place kind of dealio.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we break up with people that we're not big fans of anymore, which is fine. When we have a child with that person, unfortunately, we do have to remain in each other's lives. And one thing that I can say between my ex and me is we decided when we broke up, after the issues were kind of taken care of, when we broke up, we decided that we weren't going to do separate things for her. We weren't going to have 2 birthday parties. We weren't going to have 2 Christmases if we could help it. Sometimes I'm in healthcare, so sometimes that doesn't work out so great. You know, we weren't going to do 2 Easter baskets. We're not going to do 2 of these things. She's going to have as communal as a kid can in most things. Obviously, that sometimes that doesn't work out, and we're realistic about that. But a big that scared me. A big part of parenting with somebody and co-parenting is checking yourself and recognizing that though I'm not a fan of this person, I do have to get along with them, and for the sake of my child, try to be friends with them, even if the friendship is just, hey, bye, anything important happened today, okay, bye.
So Mikey's dad and I co-parent beautifully. We, of course, have our issues, and I primarily relate them to any cunt that he's dating. Although he does have a great
He's
woman.
got a good one right now.
I like this one very much so. We call her Baby Mama 2.0 because she is phenomenal in helping, and she understands, like, she's not mom. And she knows her place, and she's more than willing to help out and be a part of the co-parent, and there's no jealousy there. You know, so Travis and I, we do 2 separate households, like Christmas at his house, Christmas at my house, this, you know, Easter, Thanksgiving, all of it.
And just because it works for my family does not mean it's going to work for yours. Does not mean it's going to work for yours.
But Easter this year, I went over there. You know, I stopped at my friend David Shelley's house because they wanted me to come over. And nobody lets me be alone on a holiday ever, because apparently that's bad for my mental health. So, and then I was like, well, I've got to stop over at my son's dad's house because my son had wanted me to come over. And I walked in and I got great big hugs from literally everybody. And then, like, I must have missed one of Mikey's uncles, so my ex's brother. I was in the car on my way backing out, and he's coming out, and I'm talking to my ex, Travis, and his brother comes out, and he was like, what's going on? And I'm like, what's up? He was like, well, I didn't get a hug. He literally left the party inside to come outside to give me a hug. So we're still very much a family. I call Travis's mom. It's Happy Mother's Day, Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday, all of that stuff. We do that well. My daughter's dad, though.
Right.
We do not talk unless it's in text and only about our daughter.
And if that's what works for you, to be civil with each other, then that is perfectly fine. I will never understand people being petty to the other parent, specifically because
calling
they're going to be parents,
calling
or
the cops, what have you,
or like freaking out. I mean, obviously, if there is true neglect or harm happening to your child, then yes, call the proper authorities for such things. But in, like, I don't know, 85% of those cases, it's people being spiteful and people being petty and people being upset about things that they just don't matter. I mean, I run into my ex-husband, my daughter's dad, more often than I run into him. And every time I see her, it's, hi, how are you? We're very cordial together. You know, I want nothing but the best for them. I honestly, because when they're happy, my daughter's happy. You know, and that's all I want. And I mean, I've said from day one, since my ex and I broke up, was whomever he finds, whomever he gets into a relationship with. This is another thing that boggles my mind, is people being mean to the ex's new significant other. They did nothing to you. They just decided to date your ex, which you did it too at one point, so I don't want to hear it. And then, like, if they start shit, go for it.
Yeah.
If they start shit, put them in their place, because I'm sorry, at the end of the day, you're not mom. But, like, with my relationship with my ex and his now fiance, who is pregnant with twins, by the way, and we love that for them.
We love twins.
And we're gonna each just steal one of those babies so we can snuggle it. But neither here nor there. We're just excited for babies.
We need to finish baking the potatoes,
right?
so
the
we
potatoes
can
gotta
snuggle them.
The potatoes gotta bake for a little while longer. Anyways, I've always said, the more people that are willing to love and accept my child, the better.
Yep.
Lizzie calls her family, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, whatever, what have you. You know, was immediately accepted into that family, and I'm forever grateful, because sometimes, you know, grandparents, parents, they don't take those children, the stepchildren, into consideration. But they took her. And I remember, I don't know, it was probably like 8 months ago now, where I was going over to drop something off for my daughter, and my ex sat me down with his fiance and said, we gotta talk to you about something. We don't want you to get mad about it, whatever, which is crazy, because I don't really get mad about a lot of things when it comes to what's happening over there. And he said, Lizzie has been calling her mom more often than not, and she'll catch herself. And they asked her about it that day, and said, why are you like stopping yourself or whatever? She goes, I don't want to get in trouble. And so they said, okay, we'll bring it up with mom, me, and we'll talk about it. And I immediately called my kiddo in there, and I was like, come here. She goes, okay. I was like, are you calling her mom? She goes, yeah. I was like, does she feel like your mom? Yeah. Then you can call her mom. And that is the end of the discussion. Lizzie knows, though sometimes she does call both of us mom, like when we're in the store and we both kind of look at her. We're like, you need to distinguish when we're together, sweetheart. Like,
see, that's very different than how I feel.
Absolutely. And that's fine.
Yep. I would be gutted if my kids called somebody else mom. And I think, and my kids know this, like, and I make it very known to my ex's significant others that, like, you will love them like they are yours. You will help raise them like they are yours. But stay in your fucking lane, because you are not mom. I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is my right.
It is. And I understand when people say that. Like, I have a coworker who, she's baffled by my ability to just be chill with somebody else parenting my child.
You're very roll with the flow.
I am. I try not to rock the boat as much as possible. And, you know, like I said, at the end of the day, if there are more people in this world that love my child, that's for the better. She's called you auntie since the day she was born. And, you know, she's got a couple other aunties, my other best friends. And she doesn't really have, like, a ton of uncles, if you will. Just because that's just how my ex's circle is, which is fine. But at the end of the day, in my point of view at least, my child knows who her mother is. And my child knows who came into the family and became a bonus mom.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't bother me all that much. Now, if she started to try to make decisions on my child's behalf, yes, I'd probably have an issue with that, because it's my decision and it's my ex's decision to make together. But she has never, not once, overstepped. She's given her opinion on a couple things, and that opinion has been taken into consideration. But at the end of the day, that the final decision making comes to the two parents.
Yep.
And she's never once overstepped that boundary. And she's never once not communicated something with me out of spite. And same with me. I don't not communicate with them out of spite. I don't try to, because I I'm the one to more often than not take home the backpack from school. I'm the one that sees all the stuff in the folder. I don't not tell them. It's mind-boggling to me when people are spiteful where their kids are involved.
And that could also be a trauma response. And by itself is toxic too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could be very toxic, and I have some toxic tendencies towards like the bonus parents.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't feel like my role as their mom is threatened, but I feel like my role as a decision maker is, just because I'm not in those households helping make those decisions when it affects my children. I feel like the odd man out, and I think that's where some of my toxic towards them comes through. Although baby mama 2.0, my son's dad's girlfriend, is very, very awesome at texting or calling or stopping by and saying, hey, this is what's going on. Are you okay with this? Like, I said he could, but like I wanted to run it by you. I don't really have much communication with my ex-husband's girlfriend in that aspect, just because it was put in place when they first started dating that she was not allowed to talk to me, which in and of itself is very toxic, Jesse.
Red flag.
Naughty. It's not like I'm gonna blab your secrets to her. Anyways, I mean, I could. But, like, I have to trust, and as hard as it is for me, I have to trust that he is making those decisions for the benefit of our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to trust that if he makes a questionable decision in the presence of his girlfriend that may or may not affect my daughter, I would hope that the new girlfriend, or I wouldn't say new, but they've been together a couple years, would like kind of get him to stop and think.
Right.
But I also know how my ex-husband is, and it's his way or no way.
Right.
Like, and if you try to justify any other way of thinking or put a halt to what he's got going on,
doubles down.
He doubles down. You're the asshole. It's all your fault. And the fight that ensues is astronomical. So I can see where she would take a step back and be like, fine, whatever, fuck it, it's your kid, you make that decision, but here's what I'm thinking. So it on that side, it's very
right. And I mean, that's where I've always been, you know, grateful to my ex, because though some things, yes, everybody makes questionable decisions. I do to him, like, you know, I make decisions that he might gawk at and vice versa. But at the end of the day, when the decisions are made about our daughter, it's made jointly. Mm-hmm. Like the big decisions, you know, I don't ask him when I can make doctor's appointments or anything, because we both know that I just make them. And if he can't come for whatever reason, because I make a decent effort to make it at a time where I think that he'll be able to come. Mm-hmm. But if for whatever reason he couldn't come to something, I always communicate what it is that happened and what the doctor, dentist, whomever said.
See, I tried to make it, again, at a time where I feel like he could come, so later in the day. Mm-hmm. So I'm not missing so much work. He's not missing so much work. Mikey's dad trusts me completely, always has from day one, even now, and probably will for the rest of his life when it comes to making those medical decisions for our kid. He has never come to any of the appointments. He's always trusted that I call and be like, hey, this is what's going on. This is, you know, if he's on any meds, this is his healing process, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
Now with the divorce, my daughter's dad, who never went to doctor's appointments before, feels like he has to come to every doctor's appointment because he does not trust me to give him the information. Whatever. Fine. Great. But Monday, our daughter had come home with a migraine. Tuesday. So she couldn't go to gymnastics. So I texted him right away saying, hey, she's got a raging migraine. She was nauseous at school. She has some light sensitivity. She will not be going to gymnastics. And he was like, well, do you think we should make an appointment? And I told him, I'm like, I'll call, set up the appointment. And I coordinated it with their dental appointment next week.
Mm-hmm.
And I texted him. I said, hey, their dental appointment is at this time in Wausau, but I got, you know, our daughter in for her doctor appointment at this time. That gives us enough time to have her doctor appointment and then get to Wausau then too. And he was like, okay, cool. Like, I don't know if he's coming. I have no idea if he's showing up or if he just trusts me to take her to the dentist or to the doctor and then both kids to the dentist and say, hey, this is what's going on. I have no idea. So, I mean, the level of communication we have there is not well.
Right. And it will vary. But, like, my whole point in this, and then we'll move on. My whole point is being spiteful
only hurts the kids.
It only hurts the kids. And being spiteful to somebody when there are children involved is in and of itself narcissistic.
Very.
You are only thinking of yourself. You are not thinking of your child, and don't pretend otherwise, because most of the time people see right through that, and your mask will fall, and it's just unnecessary. So I, you know, for the last little bit, did you want to talk about the neighbors? You want to just skip it until next week? 1-7.
We got about 7 minutes. Okay, so quickly, Monday I had a doctor's appointment where I had a breast ultrasound. I have been dealing with a rare breast disease for about 5 years now. Had a partial mastectomy done 5 years ago on the right side, and ever since I have been dealing with a lot of breast issues. So Monday I went in, had an ultrasound, and if anybody has any ultrasounds on any part of your body where you're in pain, it's just gonna piss you right off. So I was in a pretty pissy mood. I had my daughter with. We went out to dinner. We had our favorite Mexican restaurant, and my phone was dinging, and it was my camera notifying me that there was movement in my driveway. So I go on my camera after like letting it go off and off and off, and I noticed it was my neighbor's home, and I literally went on and I said, stay off my driveway. It is not, or stay off my property. It's not your goddamn driveway. And I said it just like that. There was no malice. I wasn't swearing up a storm. I wasn't threatening them. Like, I wasn't harassing. That's literally all I said. Stay off my driveway. It is not your goddamn property. But they,
by the way, they rent.
Yeah, they rent. I own. They called the cops on me for harassment and for being aggressive, which is fucking hilarious, because we all know how aggressive I am.
Honestly.
So I pull into my driveway as the cops are pulling up. We do the whole spiel. I show them the video. She seemed okay with it. Goes over there, tells them to stop wasting resources. Well, that must have pissed off the neighbor, because like 2 days later, that Wednesday, again, I had another doctor's appointment with my breast doctor. Fought for 45 minutes to get what I needed. Anyways, that's a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in a pretty pissy mood then. And I come home, I clock in, I go to work, and I get a phone call from our local PD, and she was informing me that I was being charged with a disorderly conduct. And I was like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. And she's like, I just need to know if I can send you the ticket. I was like, no, I'll come down and pick it up. So I come down, I show her the video again of where I told her, my neighbor, to stay off my driveway and off my property. I showed her that I wasn't being malicious, that I wasn't being aggressive, that no other words were said. And I was like, how does this qualify as a disorderly when, and I showed her all the other videos that I have of her being aggressive and playing coming home at 3:30 in the morning and playing Your Cunt on repeat with her windows open in the middle of February, or coming home drunk and pulling into my driveway and having to back up and pull into her driveway, or her dog. Like, I have a lot of evidence of them just being horrible fucking neighbors. I was like, how does this not qualify as a disorderly for them? I've made the complaint. I didn't call you guys. I came down. I wrote the report up. And I was told by your department to just let it go, build my case, and then when I felt like I have enough to come in, get the restraining order. And she was like, I don't know. I didn't take your report, but this is what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, well, if I have to go to court and fight this, I'm taking all of you with me. And I said, because it was under your direction to just keep building evidence, which I did. It was under your direction to go to her landlord and file complaints with them because you guys wouldn't do anything. And I did go to them, and they told me they couldn't do anything and to take it back to you. So I was getting the runaround, but she can call and I get a disorderly because I told her to stay off my driveway. Anyways, I beat that. I beat the disorderly because, your girl's a rock star. And I get news that they are actually fucking moving.
Thank goodness.
Thank God. It's been a long year
road
with them next to me. But I'm under the impression that the landlord is not renewing their lease. And they're blaming me because apparently I'm the one that did it. I got them kicked out, and apparently I texted them. What have you. It's
a thing.
It's a thing. But it's funny to me because I didn't text them. I filed complaints with their landlord because, well, that's what the cops told me to do. And they have nobody to blame but themselves.
Absolutely.
So it has been a rough week, I want to say.
It definitely has been a rough 2 weeks.
Rough 2 weeks starting, this happened last week, with that, with the doctor's appointment, the new medication, it's been rough.
Mm-hmm.
So we apologize for not updating you guys or uploading a video last week. We were just a little busy.
Right. Well, maybe we'll do 2 this week. We'll see how we feel tomorrow. Honestly, you girls are ADHD driven, so sometimes our hyper focus just focuses elsewhere.
But hang in there with us. We'll promise we'll do better next
Right.
week.
Don't make promises.
Okay, maybe we won't. Okay, we'll attempt.
We will try.
We promise to attempt to do better.
Right. So with that, that's the end of her. And then next time you see us. Next time you see us. I don't know. What do you want to talk about? We'll figure it out. It'll be a surprise.
Yep. Let's just kind of wing it.
So, you guys have a great rest of your week. As always, feel free to message us, contact us in any way on the channel. If you have anything that you want us to talk about, if you just want to vent to us, we are always open.
We'll put the suicide hotline number again on the bottom. And remember, counseling and therapy, they are not dirty words.
Healing, not healed.
Healing, not healed. So, with that being said, you guys have a great night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.